Hi, I'm Mr. Simons, and in this video we're going to go through step by step how I would approach a business report question. The one we are going to talk about is from the 2020 HSC. Okay, so the question starts and says, ice creams are us. Now, I think that that's a really difficult thing to keep writing every time. So what I'll do is after I write it the first time, is I'll just use IRU. So I'll put that in brackets so I don't have to write the whole thing out in full every time. So IRU exclusively delivers ice cream to homes in Newcastle. So this is interesting. So what it's saying is that right now, so we'll just put RN, right now, that it is direct to consumer. That it's not selling through retailers, it's just selling directly to consumers. What I'm not sure about is, do Ice Creams R Us make their own ice creams? I'm going to assume that they do, but all we know is that they deliver ice cream to homes. So then it says to increase market share. Great. So we can see a particular goal or objective that this business has. They are negotiating with a major service station chain, Yuka Fuels Limited. The names in this question are just really, to sell their brand of ice cream throughout New South Wales. So that what we're saying is that right now they're selling direct to consumer, but that in the future, they want to sell their ice creams via this petrol station network in New South Wales, Yuka Fuels. So that what they're talking about is that we want to go from just being direct to consumer to then having more of a selective distribution. So already I'm seeing, okay, this sounds like operations, this sounds like logistics. We can also think about, it sounds like marketing because it sounds like place. So before they agree to sell the ice cream, Yuka Fuels Limited have a number of concerns, not just one, but heaps, over the ability of Ice Creams R Us to do the following things. So here are the key elements of the business report. Here are the things that we're going to have to actually address in looking at this particular section. What we're saying is that this is the concerns. We'll just call them Yuka. So these are the concerns of Yuka in working with IRU. So that what they're concerned about, one, can IRU deliver ice cream to their outlets in a timely fashion? So that here, okay, cool, that sounds like logistics if I ever heard something related to logistics. The other thing is that Yuka worries that IRU can't create an awareness that the ice cream will be sold at their outlets. And then Yuka is also worried, can IRU produce more ice cream but still making a quality product? So these are these concerns. So that if we are looking at the focus of this question, is that you have been hired by IRU. So this is the key point that you need to be clear of, is that if we look at you as the person answering this question, you have been hired by IRU, so that in your response, your focus really has to be about our focus, our perspective is from IRU in trying to address these concerns. Don't talk about what Yuka Fuels should do. That is not going to get you the marks in this question. So here, we've got three things that we need to do. So this is really the focus of the business report. And these will be where our headings and sections will be drawn from. Describe two physical distribution issues that the business needs to consider in delivering their product. Cool. Justify. So we have to provide some reason support there. One promotional strategy the business could use. And then recommend possible changes the business could make to their ops process to address the volume and quality concerns. So we've got three very clear things in terms of what we are looking at. This process takes a little while the more you do these types of questions, the easier it actually becomes. But it's very important that when you're practicing, that you take this step-by-step process to get used to it. What we're going to do is we're now going to focus on these specific sections, on these focus areas of the question. What I'm not going to do in this video is touch on the executive summary. It's just become too long in terms of a video. I'll have a separate video that looks at what should go in an executive summary and how that should be structured. This is just really looking at the process of understanding a business report question and how to answer it. Okay, so what I've done here is I have matched up the areas of focus in the question with the parts from the syllabus. So that if we're matching these things up, so we could say, all right, so that's part 1, part 2, part 3, and that over here, that, oh, okay, cool. So that's 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, that those are the reports sections that we're going to be talking about. Is it says, describe 2 physical distribution issues that the business needs to consider in the delivery of their product. So I think that this shows the kind of detailed understanding of the syllabus that you need, because you can see here that the exact language of the question matches the area of the syllabus. So you can see, oh, okay, if we have to discuss 2 physical distribution issues, that we've got the selection of the issues that comes from marketing and then place, because with marketing, we've got the 4 Ps. So what I might do is then think about, okay, so what are the most relevant areas for IRU? Because remember, our perspective is looking at IRU and the kind of things they need to consider in the delivery of their product. So for me, I think that transport and warehousing are really good. You could discuss inventory. I just haven't thought about that too much. So let's think about these 2 areas in particular. So if I talk about transport, how does IRU, remember Ice Creams Are Us, who's hired us, move the goods, physically move the goods to all of those service stations? Because before, IRU was delivering direct to customers, and now it's got to get its products to all of those service stations around New South Wales. So that if I'm thinking about this particular issue here, is that I would really think, okay, so what combination of transport options would be used? And that I sort of look at it in terms of the kind of things we can choose from, and then I'm thinking, okay, so what I need is a sort of a good combination of speed plus cost effectiveness, because I don't want to get things there really quickly but go bankrupt in the process. The other thing that you should think about in terms of this transport process is that when we are physically moving the goods, is that we have to keep them cold the whole time. If the ice creams melt, then that's going to be a disastrous experience for Yucca Fuels and customers. So that we need to think about, okay, what are the kind of transport options? So that you would need to talk about some things that you might suggest. And I would be like, okay, so we could use trucks, because you could have like good cold storage on the back and it would be able to carry quite a bunch. You could talk about rail. And both of these allow for good volume of product and low price. These are probably, not planes. And the reason that I would say something like not planes is that it's super expensive, so that we could say, oh, okay, so that's going to be really pricey, even though it might be really quick. And the other thing is that, are there enough airports close by to all of those service stations? Because the service stations aren't always located right next to airports. And I think about, okay, so how would I describe that? So we would say that these would be a good balance. This 20 tonnes figure I've just got from the textbook, and I'll put the link in the show notes. But I think that we're talking here, it's a good balance of cost, so low cost, and high capacity, that they could carry up to 20 tonnes worth of ice creams, and that the other thing which is really good is that they can reach the service stations. Okay, and I'm looking here at warehousing. So that what we're saying is that IRU, ice creams are us, that they sell ice cream, would you believe? I know it's shocking to think about. So that we need a way to store the product so that it stays cold, and then it is also ready to transport and then kept cold throughout the entire process. So that if we are thinking about how we could do that, is that in terms of this warehousing issue, is that maybe, what is that? Maybe we need multiple warehouses. Because if we're trying to distribute products to all of New South Wales and we need to make it frozen throughout the whole process, that maybe we need multiple warehouses that are then located in hubs that are ready to transport, or maybe not. Either way, we are thinking about this issue, that IRU needs a way to store the product, hold the product so that it stays cold and is ready to transport. So we need to be working on what we might call the cold chain of keeping it cold throughout the whole logistics process. So that's that first section there and how I would go about addressing that. So we've got the two physical distribution issues. We're looking here at the transport and warehousing. And that really, can you see it's not sort of asking us for a kind of justification or a recommendation. It's just saying, describe the kind of issues that IRU needs to consider. So let's do the next thing here, and we'll focus on green for this one here. So it says here, justify one promotional strategy the business could use. And that you can see here that I've got the elements of promotion right there. So let's zoom in a little bit over here. If I'm looking at this part here, section 2 being promotion, is that I really need to do a couple of things. So the first thing is thinking about the context of the question. I have to justify. And if I go back to the list of NESA directive terms, is that I need to, that is what we are being asked to do when the question says justify. And remember that for the context of this question, we only have to choose one. So that if I'm trying to figure out just one, that I need to come back and think about, okay, so what are the key challenges for ice creams are us? Because the thing is that if I say something like, well, it should do relationship marketing so that it can do blah, 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 is that I need to justify why that's the case. And if I'm looking at justifying anything in business reports, is I need to connect it to the stimulus. And that the stimulus has talked about that Yucca Fuels has concerns, but those concerns aren't really in terms of the relationship between the companies. The key concern, if I'm thinking back to the stimulus, is that having the awareness that Ice Cream R Us products are sold at Yucca Fuels outlets. That's really the key. So we need to think about what promotional strategy would help to build awareness. That's our real goal, is to build has an I, did you know that? Build awareness. IRU sells direct to customers. And now we're saying, oh, guess what? Now we actually sell in these petrol stations. So that I think that if we are looking at the issue of awareness and we're trying to get people to know that this is the case, is that this is a relatively mass market goal, because we want lots of people to know about this. And yes, mass market, we are just focused on New South Wales, but we really would like everyone to know this, not just existing customers. And lots of people like ice cream, would you believe, as well. So that I think that a really good way to do this would be to look at advertising. So we're creating ads that tell people, hey, guess what? Your ice cream, favorite ice cream, or your new favorite ice cream is now being sold at these petrol stations. So that what we could do is think about a couple of different advertising executions that IRU could do. So let's just move this over here so that if I'm thinking about the types of ads that we could do, maybe we could do some of the following things. We could create billboards that are near service stations. And the advantage here would be, say you've got a family, they're on the holiday, they're driving between destinations, you've got these massive billboards that are saying next service station 2 kilometers, and here are the IRU ice creams you can buy there. That will get people thinking, oh wow, I didn't know they were sold in service stations. We're about to go there. Why don't we go there and buy this, right? So that here, that these billboards are really trying to create that awareness that you can buy these ice creams at these service stations. Awareness. Okay, so that's part of it as well. What else can we think about here? Is that maybe also in terms of ads that you could look at digital ads. I guess it would be e-marketing based on the syllabus there. So that what we could do is maybe we could have ads that go to IRU customers. You know, saying you like these ice creams, guess what? They're now available in service stations. Maybe it could be targeted social media ads based on location. Or if you've been searching for ice cream. So that again, we are just trying to get people aware that this exists, that is the first step. And that if we are doing stuff like this, right, we're saying, okay, we're going to create billboards, we're going to have these digital ads, that we are showing Yucca Fuels that we have got a plan to create awareness that this is now happening, to build awareness. And then section 2.1 would be the advertising campaigns. Advertising campaigns, I would spell that out in full, and that in your little description underneath that heading is you could talk about the fact that the key goal is to build awareness of IRU products being sold in Yucca Fuel outlets. I just don't think any of the other ones here would be super relevant. Like, I just don't think personal selling and relationship marketing are relevant. You could definitely talk about sales promotions if you wanted to, because you could be like, oh, look, we've got this promotion, and that also helps build awareness. Publicity and PR, probably not here. I just don't think opinion leaders and word of mouth really super important in terms of this part here. But you might have a different view, and if you can justify it, then you might be cool. Recommend possible changes the business could make to their ops processes to address the volume and quality concerns. So that if I'm looking at operations processes to address volume and quality concerns, I think that what we are really looking at is how do we convert the inputs into outputs so that we can make more output, ice cream, while maintaining the same quality. We're not really looking at, I think, the inputs here. We're really looking at how do we change our process to produce more while maintaining quality. And that if I'm going to answer this part, that's something that I really need to discuss, I think, is that there can often be a trade-off when we increase quantity, so that in the context of the question, when we increase volumes, right, is that quality suffers. That's kind of the tension that this part of the question is looking at. So it's saying Yucca Fuels is concerned that the quality will drop off if IRU produces more. Quantity. And so we have to give IRU some ideas, recommendations about how to address this. So if I'm looking at the kind of things that I would discuss, is that I'm looking here, is that technology, I think would be a really good one. What else would I'll discuss? Product layout, I think, is really good here. So as part of this, not just process layout, but the product layout, because we are dealing with manufacturing. And that also, I think that this whole point here, monitoring, control, and improvement. So there are three things there that we could discuss. Okay, so if I look at technology here, so we'll just put this in white underneath here, that what we could say is that, okay, so we would like to use leading edge tech. What the goal would be to be able to increase quantity while maintain quality. So it might be useful here to use things like robotics, right? Sort of different machinery that maybe we could also replace labor. Because if we are doing these kind of things, then what we could do is we could actually become more efficient, and that we can produce more, right? That's the quantity part, but also that technology, maybe that can help us reduce mistakes in production, reduce the number of product defects, and that here, that this will help us with the quality side of things, right? So that would be what I would say, that if we improve the use of technology, then that might help us produce more and still have quite high quality products. If I look at the process or product layout here, that what I'm trying to do, or what I would suggest doing, is that we are involved in manufacturing ice cream, and that what we are trying to do is we are trying to make more, but we want to keep the quality. So that if we look at a product layout, that what we are doing is we are going to be arranging the tasks in a sequence where work flows from one task to the other, right? So we've got one, so task A goes neatly to B, to C, and so on. So we can keep production going, make it move quickly so we can make more, but also keep mistakes to a minimum. So that if we are looking at that, is that the key part in terms of this, we are trying to avoid bottlenecks where production stops, because if production stops, then that means that we can produce less, and also that's where defects and problems start emerging. So what we're saying is, let's create a product layout where there is a clear sequence, where the tasks flow onto each other, and that we're going to avoid bottlenecks. So we can produce more and avoid production stopping at the same time. Then our final part here, we're looking at this monitoring, controlling, improvement, that what we want to do is that we are trying to ensure quality is maintained, that we make improvements so that we can boost quality levels as quantity rises. So that if we are thinking about this whole process, that we can talk about as IRU, they should have a systematic, I'm just going to look at this because I like the language that I used, a systematic process to avoid production bottlenecks. And then you can even tie this to this process of continuous improvement, or Kaizen, so that IRU is continually looking at ways at how does actual performance differ from what we planned? What is the corrective action that we can take as part of the controlling? And then, as an overarching thing, how can we continue to maintain quality and improve quality, particularly as quantity rises? So these would be three things that I would suggest would be quite useful. So if I come back over here, remember that this is how I'm suggesting to structure this section. So you've got changes to operations processes. You've got, okay, so we want to put in leading edge technology. Make sure we've got a good layout in terms of production, and a product layout would be helpful, and that we are looking at monitoring, controlling, and improving. But you can see that we have gone from the stimulus and the issues to look at, okay, section 1, physical distribution issues, section 2, in terms of promotion strategies, and section 3, changes to operations processes. It's very hard to do this without a detailed knowledge of the syllabus, and you don't get the syllabus in terms of the HSC exam. So you really need to be very cluey about the syllabus and where things sit. Anyway, if you've got any questions or issues, just put them in the comments. If you have made it through to the end, congratulations. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I'll see you in the next one.